Welcome to Top Hat STEM Chat. This is our Austin Peay College of STEM podcast, bringing you everything focused on the college, its staff, faculty, and students, and the impact they are having on the world. I am Colby Wilson, and on today's episode, 90 Seconds of STEM, and an interview with Jordan Tschida, a former Austin Peay computer science student currently doing outstanding work at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. But first, celebrating our wins. This is where we highlight our faculty, staff, and students, or in this case, plants, who won an award, grabbed a grant, were placed on a committee, or otherwise recognized for their expertise, hard work, and singular genius. As y'all might have heard, Athena bloomed in early July. The greenhouse, recently renovated after suffering extensive damage during hailstorms, welcomed more than 2,000 people from around the country to visit Athena during her first bloom, and more tuned in on the live stream as well. In addition to Athena's bloom, Zeus returned home after his lone spell with the National Zoo, reuniting brother and sister in our refurbished greenhouse. It's been a busy summer for the dean. Dr. Karen Meisch was named to the Clarksville-Montgomery County Industrial Development Board of Directors for a 6-year term and was selected to participate in the 2025 American Association of State Colleges and Universities Becoming a Provost Academy. Congratulations to Dean Meisch for all her accomplishments. The APSU Veterinary Technology Program has received full accreditation status from the American Veterinary Medical Association. This spring marked the graduation of Austin Peay's 6th cohort, a milestone reflecting years of dedication, growth, and a commitment to excellence in veterinary education. The PBS Appalachia documentary, The Prairie Preacher, featuring Dr. Dwayne Estes, an Austin Peay professor and botanist who earned his nickname for his passionate advocacy for grassland conservation, won a 2025 Capital Region Emmy in July. And those are just a few of our wins in the last few days and weeks. If you have more that I'm not aware of, send those along to wilsonrc@apsu.edu. We will take a break. Be back with alum and Oak Ridge National Laboratory research scientist Jordan Miller Tschida right after this.
There's a question bothering your brain that you think you know how to explain. You need a test. Yeah, think up a test. If it's possible to prove it wrong, you're going to want to know before too long. You'll need a test. If somebody says they figured it out.
Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The very name evokes images of some of the greatest minds in scientific advancements in American history. To work, study, and be a part of the community at such a prestigious scientific site is a pipe dream for many, but today's guest wakes up every day and enters those hallowed halls of research as an alum of Austin Peay State University. Dr. Jordan Miller Tschida, welcome to Top Hat STEM Chat.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Please share a boring fact about yourself.
A boring fact about myself? I am an avid hiker.
Where do you hike?
So I've currently been to 21 of the 63 national parks, so we do a lot of hiking all around the country.
Do you have the water bottle with all the different national park stickers on it?
I do, actually.
I love those. Tell me a little bit about your early life.
Yeah, so I'm from Tennessee originally. My parents live in Goodlettsville. I went to White House High School. My dad is a small business owner. He owns an IT company based in Goodlettsville. My mom was a math teacher at White House Middle School. She also actually went to Austin Peay. She's an alumnus of there as well. So I always knew I wanted to do STEM. I thought when I was younger that I wanted to do space research for NASA, but I've ended up very far away from there. But that's a little bit about me.
So was coming to Austin Peay kind of following your mom's footsteps, or what was the path to Clarksville?
It wasn't actually. So she obviously loves Austin Peay and encouraged me to go there, but I wanted to work for NASA, like I said, and so I always knew I'd go to grad school. And so I was interested in staying local for my undergrad and then kind of going out of state for my PhD work. But what drew me into Austin Peay was the physics program itself. It was one of the best in the country, and so that was the major draw into Austin Peay.
How did coming to Austin Peay help shape who you are as a person?
Yeah, so I got really heavily involved with a lot of things on campus while I was in Austin Peay. So I worked in housing. I was a welcome orientation leader for the freshman class. I was involved in Greek life, but it also gave me the confidence to pursue leadership roles. And so one of the things that I did was found the Women in Science and Engineering Club. So I later switched my major to computer science, but when I was in my physics and computer science and math classes, I looked around and there weren't many women. And so I wanted to build a community of women in STEM where we could support each other. And so all of that work eventually led to I won an award for an advocate in diversity, and then the president's leadership award. And so it also so that was really impactful for me becoming a leader in my community. But then it also Austin Peay was my first exposure to research, and so Dr. Nicholson was instrumental in guiding my undergraduate research career. So he served as my advisor and encouraged me to apply for REUs. And so ultimately, I left Austin Peay with a passion for research and a desire to make STEM more inclusive.
You made the switch from physics to computer science. What was the driving force behind that? What caused you to make that move?
Yeah, so I was exposed to computer science through my physics coursework, and I was kind of struggling for a direction. I originally thought I wanted to do space research, but it turns out I wasn't super interested in it. And I took Dr. Nicholson's Intro to Computer Science as one of my physics courseworks, and I really loved the real world impact of the tools we were developing. So when you run programs and code, you can see it happen in real life. And so that drew me into computer science and led me into the field of robotics.
And then you referenced your REU experiences, and how valuable are those? Not just as you start to build that portfolio and start applying to graduate schools, but you're really taking some real world experience into the workplace when you get that first job and you get that second job.
Yeah, the REUs were super invaluable to my undergrad career and then my graduate school career. And then, funny enough, something I did in 2017 has recently resurfaced. And so, when I was at University of South Carolina in 2017, I was doing 3D mapping for underwater robots. And so, the idea was that the robot would scan an underwater shipwreck and then we'd reconstruct that ship, and that technology is actually resurfaced here at my job at the lab. And so it's something I wasn't really sure I'd ever use again, but here I am finding myself in that space.
Do you find yourself still occasionally getting tagged in a publishing thing from years and years ago from some research that you did?
I actually just published a couple of papers from my PhD. So yeah, I still am trying to get research out that I've worked on over the years, and it's still kind of popping up and being relevant.
Let's talk about Arizona State for a bit, because you went out, did you go to Arizona State, or was this a online course? Was it a hybrid? What was the deal?
It was online. So I moved to Arizona, to Phoenix, their Tempe location, in August of 2019. So I graduated Austin Peay December of 2018, and then moved to Arizona in August of 19, where I was a NSF Research Trainee. And so I was brought out to ASU for the NSF program for smart cities and smart living. And so I mentioned I later was involved in robotics, and so their smart living program, I was doing social robots that would help seniors that are isolated. And so it started off as a project that would be for older adults living with dementia, but kind of transitioned due to the pandemic into the healthy older adult space. But so I was on campus until we went virtual for the pandemic, and then I unfortunately was or virtual for the remainder of my grad school career, but I was located in Phoenix.
It's got to be difficult. I mean, it was difficult for everybody, regardless of the level of education you were pursuing, to make that pivot instantaneously. But as somebody who was pursuing a PhD, how difficult was that?
It was extremely difficult. So leading up to the pandemic, I spent my first year of my PhD doing all of this groundwork. I was really integrated into the Alzheimer's community, and I was chatting with people that are living with the disease and their caregivers, and I was forming this need around my research. And my PhD project was born as a social robot that would converse with people living with Alzheimer's and dementia to kind of keep them grounded. Because one of the things they recommend is um, conversational therapy. But when you look at the literature, a lot of the robots at the time, they were talking to you. And so it wasn't meeting that need that these people that they needed at the time. And so, like I said, I spent the whole first year being really integrated into the community. And then when the pandemic happened, obviously all of this senior living facilities shut down and you couldn't get in and you couldn't be around people, especially vulnerable populations. And so I had to really shift my focus and refocus my the need of the project that I was working on and how I was going to frame it for social robots for seniors that were isolated. And so thankfully it was a good time where seniors were isolated and so that worked out. But the whole part of the dementia piece fell to the side.
Working with the NSF, and that's who was providing you. What was their? I guess what was the NSF's role in this research trainee situation? Because it's not something that I've encountered with a lot of people that I've talked to over the course of this podcast.
Sure. Yeah, so the NSF Research Trainee is a program. So my PhD advisor, Dr. Troy McDaniel, wrote the Citizens Smart Living and Smart Cities grant. And so a part of that grant, we brought in what you would call trainees, and these were PhD and master's students that would undergo this specific coursework that was kind of more socially focused. So instead of just taking a direct technical stab at the smart living, the smart city, the NSF wanted us to focus on the social impact and really the ethical pieces of what we were doing. And so it was kind of an interdisciplinary program where people in computer science were exposed to these social science concepts. So we became ethical scientists as we were developing technology in the future.
So it's not just here's how to do it, it's also here's how to do it and how to study the ramifications.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
And once you graduated Arizona State, what was the next step? Was it immediately off to Oak Ridge?
Yeah, so I was exposed to Oak Ridge first before I went to Arizona State. So in between, I graduated at Austin P, and before I started ASU, I did a summer internship here at Oak Ridge National Lab. And so when I graduated from Arizona State, I was interested in coming back to the lab. And so I joined as a postdoc in the biomedical sciences group, and they're kind of at the intersection of AI and healthcare. And so that is where I spent the last 2.5 years before I finally converted to full-time staff in February of 2025 this year.
That postdoc tenure, as you're getting your feet under you with a PhD in the professional world, tell people a little bit more about that, because I think there's a misconception of, oh, I have a doctorate, I can go pick my job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a postdoc is like a bridge between grad school and permanent research. So it's really a time when you get to build your technical depth, you get to publish, you get to lead projects, and you really start to establish your research identity. And here at the lab, it's where I got exposed to large scale projects. And so for me, it was when my work started to have a broader impact. And so being a postdoc at the lab, it's really given me the opportunity and the freedom to grow as an independent researcher. And so it's really just a time where you get to pick a specialty and kind of dive a little bit deeper.
And your specialty is led now that you're full-time staff into the time series transformer. Is that a project you're working on, or is it a concept?
It's a project that I'm working on. So the specialty that I worked on as a postdoc was natural language processing. So my PhD was in social robotics. I did a little bit of computer vision work as an undergrad with Dr. Nicholson. And so the missing piece that I really felt like I wanted to pick up was natural language processing. And so as a research staff, now what I'm working on, you said the time series transformers. So transformers is really a natural language processing concept, but they've started to apply it to the computer vision world. And so I'm kind of in a space where I'm bridging concepts from different subdisciplinaries of computer science to work on a particular project for one of our sponsors right now.
As you look back on it, how all the pieces fit together. Is it incredible just to see how seamlessly it went from computer science at Austin P to Arizona State to postdocing at Oak Ridge, and now it's kind of come into this. It's made you this incredible expert in this one very specific thing.
Yes, it is kind of, it's funny. I say when I give my interview, the job I have now is like the intersection of all the things I've ever done. And so I'm doing a little bit of computer vision, which I did as an undergrad in all of my REUs. And then I'm doing robotics, which I did in my PhD program. I'm doing ethical science, which is the NSF trained me to do. And then now I'm doing NLP, which is what my postdoc did. And so to see it all kind of come together and mesh into this very unique space has been it's been fun to watch.
You referenced AI, and with the ethical science as well, I feel like it's a thorny subject now because there is so much that I think the general public just simply does not understand about AI. But for you and the work you do, has it made your life easier or more difficult?
It's definitely made my research a lot faster, but it also has created new challenges. And so I, as I'm doing faster research, I'm also thinking about managing bias and reproducibility and explainability to the people that are going to be using it. So, especially in my postdoc, we were doing AI for healthcare. And so it was really important that the tools we're developing were not biased and they were explainable because they were going to be implemented into hospital settings. And so, this responsibility to keep it ethical has always been kind of at the forefront of my research.
Is that something that, as scientists who maybe don't have that background in ethicals, begin to use AI more and more, that there's a fear that maybe that will not be at the front of mind for everyone?
My personal opinion is yes. I think it started to become more talked about now than it was maybe a few years ago. But I think talking about it and having exposure to these kinds of conversations is what brings it to the forefront of people's minds. But a few years ago, right, we didn't have ChatGPT, we didn't have things that were advancing as fast as they are now. And so now it's become integrated into almost every person's lives. You know, if you're using ChatGPT or using Copilot from Microsoft or even Gemini when you do a Google search, so it's become something that people are more exposed to. So I think as that exposure increases, the ethical pieces will begin to follow. Should have been on maybe on the front side, but it's okay. Better late than never.
When and where were you happiest?
I know where was I happiest? The happiest that I've ever been, I think, was backpacking through the Grand Canyon. So, right in the middle of my PhD, my husband, we were dating at the time, we won a permit to backpack through the Grand Canyon for 3 days. And so, normally people do this, you can do it over a day if you're really hardcore, but we took the opportunity to do it over 3 days and go slow and take our time. And it's been the best experience I've ever had.
They don't just give those permits out to everybody. How did you get one?
You have to, they still work on facts, which is kind of funny. And so I had to submit our itinerary, and because I was in grad school, I was really flexible with my time. And I said we could go anytime in November. We could make the itinerary forward or backwards or however we wanted to do it. And so they ended up giving it to us over the weekend before Thanksgiving and the itinerary that we were looking for. But I think because we were so flexible, it's what really increased our chances of getting what we wanted.
What is your biggest fear?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Apparently, it's not backpacking through the Grand Canyon.
No, it's kind of snakes, actually. I'm trying to think of what my biggest fear is.
I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but it does seem like snakes are prevalent.
I try not to look at them, so as long as I don't know they're there, I'm okay.
What might cause you to lie?
I think what might cause me to lie is if I was protecting somebody's feelings. So if it was kind of a white lie for the greater good.
Who or what inspires you?
I think what inspires me is my parents. So they've always encouraged me to go out and not be afraid of failure and to really push myself. And so they were also not afraid of failure and went out and did things for themselves. So, like, my mom went back to school when I was 10 years old and graduated with a bachelor's and a master's degree in 2.5 years. She was kind of amazing. And then my dad, started a business from the ground up. And so they've always inspired me to work hard and really go after what I want and not be afraid of what might stand in the way.
What is the biggest risk you've ever taken?
I think the biggest risk I've ever taken was uprooting my life to go to Arizona for grad school, and then the pandemic happening. So the when I was there, right, everything was shut down, and so I was there by myself. I didn't really have a big community, and then obviously once lockdown happened, it was even more isolated, and so it was definitely the biggest risk I've ever taken. It's the biggest payoff I've ever had as well, but it was also the biggest risk.
Has a recent act of kindness or generosity had a big impact on you?
The most recent act of kindness that I've had is that while I transitioned to my new job here at the lab, so I left the AI for healthcare, and now I'm in the national security space. I was kind of by myself, but I really felt welcomed by the women in STEM here. So there's lots of women in this field, and so they've all gone out of their way to ensure that I felt welcomed and had mentors and guidance in case I needed anything. They've always been there for me, and that was really a big thing that impacted me as I was starting a new career, if you will, where I didn't really know anybody.
Is that something that you feel compelled to pay forward when you get that?
Yes, I actually a couple weeks ago hosted a summer camp for girls that are interested in STEM, and so well, I didn't host, I was a job shadow, and so I had 6 girls come through, and they got to chat with me about my pathway through STEM, my life at Austin P, my life at ASU, and then now my life at the lab, and kind of help guide them as they begin to make their decisions on as they enter school, where they might could go and what they might be interested in.
How would you prefer to die?
Very peacefully.
If you were reincarnated, what would you like to come back as and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I like to come back as some kind of animal because animals are kind of free from the burden of working, and so they get to go and enjoy life and be a part of it. And the idea of always being outside is something that interests me.
You have to put 3 things in a time capsule to represent your life. What goes in there?
A robot, some hiking boots, and a camera.
What kind of camera?
My husband and I have a Sony A6400, and so as we travel across the country, we take lots of photos, and so that would be one of the things that represents my life.
If you could make one significant change in the world, what would it be?
These are hard questions. I think if I could make one significant change in the world, it would be maybe through. Can I actually clarify the question? Do you mean like in general, like end world hunger, or do you mean like if I could leave an impact, like a legacy?
You know, more generally, I feel like the first one, but I've also never considered the second, so I'll leave it up to you which one you want to discuss.
I kind of took it as a second.
Let's go with it then.
I think if I could make a significant change in the world, I'd like to leave my impact in the space of AI. I'd like to leave the world with the thought that AI is a tool for good and not one that necessarily will destroy the world, but it's going to take effort from people building tools responsibly and ethically on the front end for this not to become a fear and overshadow social media or media in general. And so that would like to be a legacy that I leave behind.
I hope you do, because somebody certainly needs to do it.
Uh-huh.
Jordan, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sitting down and answering questions and telling us about your life.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Want to know if it's the truth? Then, my friend, you are going to need proof. Come up with a test. Yeah, you need a test. Don't believe it 'cause they say it's so. If it's not true, you have a right to know. Put it to the test. Put it to the test. Yeah, test it out. Put it to the test. Put it to the test. Put it to the test. Put it to the test.
Thanks to Jordan Miller Tschida for joining us this week. Before we wrap up, it's time for 90 seconds of STEM. If you're looking for our friends in Allied Health, they're busy getting everything moved and organized in the new Health Professions building. Students, you are going to love this new building on the corner of 8th and Marion Street. On June 27th, the Governor School for Computational Physics held its 17th annual closing ceremonies. High school students had a transformative learning experience, earning college credit through a rigorous introduction to the computational methods used by scientists and engineers, all under the supervision and instruction of OSTP's world-class faculty and staff. Senior Shaylin Barber recently represented OSTP in the state of Tennessee at the American Society of Radiologic Technologists Educational Symposium in Reno, Nevada, through the Student to Leadership Development Program. She was one of 2 students in the state of Tennessee chosen for this prestigious honor. And last but certainly not least, make sure you mark your calendars for October 30th. Clear the day to ignore the kids and come to campus for a lecture and book signing by distinguished professor, author, and autism advocate Dr. Temple Grandin. The renowned orator will be on campus at Mabry Auditorium for one night only, and you will not want to miss this event. More details are coming soon, so stay tuned in to the college's social media channels for every event associated with Dr. Grandin's visit. And that's it, your 90 seconds of STEM. Thanks for tuning in. Rate and review if you liked what you heard, or drop me a line at wilsonrc@apsu.edu or at cwilson225 on the website, formerly known as Twitter, if you didn't. If there's somebody you want to hear from or learn more about, or if you're a College of STEM alum and want to get involved, get at me at one of those 2 places. As for the podcast, find us on Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, or wherever all fine podcasts are given away for free. Thanks for tuning in this week. We will talk to you later.
There's antimony, arsenic, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and rhenium, and nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium, and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium, and lanthanum, and osmium, and astatine, and radium, and gold, protactinium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, and thorium, and thulium, and thallium.